So now I have the privilege and pleasure of talking with a panel of current and former students. I'm looking forward to the panel, partly because it's one of the most inspiring things that we get to do is to spend time with young people whose brilliance and amazing ideas and passion give all of us a sense of hope in a time when hope can sometimes feel in short supply. I think of the words of the author and civil rights activist Pearl Buck, who said of young people, "The young do not know enough to be prudent, and therefore they attempt the impossible and achieve it generation after generation." I look forward to being inspired by these young people together with you. Thank you for the work you do on behalf of the nation's young people.
First, please welcome Kalia Broswell, alumna of Philip O. Berry NAF Academy of Technology in Charlotte, North Carolina. Second, Osei Kalua, a current student at McKinley Tech High School Academy of Information Technology here in Washington, D.C. Next, Antonio Smith, alumna of East Forsyth High School Academy of Finance in Kernersville, North Carolina. And finally, Christine Yared, a student of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School NAF Academy of Finance in Parkland, Florida.
Well, it is a pleasure to meet all of you. I'm excited for our conversation, and I thought we'd start with each of you sharing your NAF story, your NAF journey. What got you interested in NAF programming, and tell us about your experience. Why don't we start with you?
Okay, so my story is actually a story of being in NAF sort of by chance, or even by a mistake a little bit. About 4 or 5 years ago, my family moved to Florida, and my brother was entering his freshman year of high school. He wanted to go into engineering at our school, but since there wasn't enough room, they put him in the finance class, and he was a little disappointed. He didn't care about finance. He wanted to do engineering, but he was introduced to NAF, and he stuck with it all 4 years and learned so much from it and gained so much from it that I saw how passionate he was about it and how much he learned from it that I decided I should take it as well.
Great, thanks.
I'll be honest, I wanted to look good. At the Finance Academy in Kernersville, North Carolina on Tuesdays, it was Dress for Success Day. I remember the second week on campus my freshman year seeing these students that were so polished walking out of this classroom, and so I walked into the classroom and I saw pictures of them in New York, picture of them at a Rolls Royce, and I said, it sounds like and looks like something I want to be a part of. And so honestly, that's why I joined. But it was very beneficial. I got to meet so many wonderful people that I still keep in contact with today, and it's been amazing.
Great.
My NAF story is a little bit different. So 8th grade year is the time, like in DC, everybody's looking at which high school you're gonna join, like where you're gonna spend your next 4 years, and then eventually college. So I was looking up high schools, and I saw, okay, you got Banneker, School Without Walls, Wilson, McKinley Tech, all these different schools, but I heard the Tech. Like, I never heard of McKinley Tech before, like maybe in conversation, but not really. Then it was like McKinley Technology. I was like, technology? I like playing computer games. I was like, maybe I'll check this out. So then I started doing a little bit of research, and I was like, wow, this school, they do a lot, you know. It's very innovative. Like, the programs that they use are so new. It's like no other school in DC had this stuff, like this amazing programs. And I just thought, okay, let me spend my future here because I think it'll be the best for me.
Great.
Nice. My journey was a little similar, but a little different in that when I was in middle school, my high school was actually in the process of being built, so it didn't even exist. But I grew up on the side of town that the school was on, and it was an academy of technology. And so for the same thing, I'm like, okay, I'm interested in technology, so I want to go there. But again, the school didn't exist. It was just being built, so we didn't know what it would actually offer. And luckily, at the time, I chose the IT Academy, but it was the only NAF Academy, even though it was Philip O. Berry Academy of Information Technology was the school's name. The only academy that was a NAF Academy was the IT Academy, and that's the one that I chose. For the similar reasons, I was interested in tech, and I really wanted to learn how to program. And so, the rest was history from there.
Great, great. It'd be great to hear from each of you. What's an experience that you had in the academy that you feel like helped prepare you for college or helped prepare you for what you expect college to be like? So why don't we start there?
I think one of the biggest things was just what we learned and how NAF pushed me. There were a lot of things in NAF where we had to present a project. And at the beginning of the year, I was absolutely horrible at speaking in front of large groups. But as you see right now, I'm up here speaking, and I'm not about to faint, so I think that's So I think it's really helped with my public speaking.
Excellent.
Yeah, so mine was definitely the internship that we had to complete. And they asked me to speak about my internship experience, and I did, and I thought I gave a great story. But some feedback that I got back from my manager was that she didn't feel like I spoke about the program inclusively. She said, you said a lot of I, but what you did, it was a lot of teamwork. And so it really prepared me for really thinking about things holistically, and it made me learn how to take and understand feedback well. So that definitely prepared me for college and for the workforce.
Excellent.
Okay, so I have a similar story to you. At my school, we have a program called On-Ramps to Careers, and that gives us internships. So at these internships, you basically, well, not basically, you are like someone that's working as a regular employee of a different company. So last year I worked at Georgetown, and I always tell people all my years at Tech, which is only 3 so far, all my years there was nothing compared to that one summer of on-the-job learning, on-the-site learning. And I tell people, like, that first day I went in there, I was like, okay, now I've been taking these certification classes, I've been taking these IT classes. I'm not gonna ask nobody for help. I'm just gonna get it all on my own. And then I get there and they tell me image a computer, and I'm like, I never heard of this. I was like, do you want me to take a picture of this stuff in the computer? That's what's going on in my head. But in class, my teacher always tells me, first you gotta troubleshoot. Like, that's a big thing with IT, you gotta troubleshoot. So after troubleshooting and realizing that I didn't have the tools, I clearly didn't know what I was doing. Just asking for help and things like that just helped my internship go better. And I think that's something that can hold people back a long time, not wanting to be able to ask, not feeling welcome to say, I don't know this, I don't know that. But at Tech, you're not gonna know everything. So that really helped me a lot.
Great, thank you.
I would say my experience kind of set me up, one, to set me ahead of my peers. I ended up studying computer science at NC State, and I went into computer engineering. I went in as computer engineering, and as I stated earlier, I learned how to program at Philip O. Berry. So I was a little cocky when I got to college. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do computer science. I already know how to code. I'm gonna do something different. And then I got into, I can't remember what the first course was, but it weeded me out. And I was like, all right, computer science. Yeah, let me go do that. But I was able to transition well because I had already seen the material in high school. So while I wasn't an expert like I thought I was in programming, at least I knew the fundamentals and I knew how to program in Java. But NAF also helped me become professional. So I remember, and there's people here that knows me from high school, going to school also dressed up because I also had an internship. And so it kind of gave me that level of responsibility and professionalism before actually even going into college. And so it kind of helped me with both professional-wise and then in college.
Great. Antonio raised something important, this idea of teamwork and collaboration as an essential part of the internship experience. It's something that employers often say is lacking in new employees, that ability to work effectively in a team. Can you talk about whether in class or in the internship, how you learned through your NAF experience to work effectively in teams? Maybe even an example of a time it was hard and you overcame why it was hard.
So I haven't been on an internship yet because I'm only in my first year, but I'll talk about a project I did. I'll be honest, I didn't like most people in my NAF class. A lot of them I considered to be delinquents. So So when we had to do our first group project, I was terrified because I didn't know who I wanted to work with. I was nervous that someone wouldn't put in the work or they wouldn't produce quality work and I would look bad because they're in my group. So it really pushed me to look beyond my initial judgment of people and compromise and just look at other points of view and help other people while they also help me and just work collaboratively as a team, even though we were very different and weren't necessarily friends.
It's powerful.
So definitely with me, my experience has been you get into these teams and you get into these groups and you're all very different. And typically you're in groups where everyone's a leader. And they think that, and we all at one point think that being a leader is speaking up and taking charge. But I believe that's not true. You can lead in your own way. So my experience has been just really getting to know people and really understanding your strengths. Some people are doers and some people are not. Some people are executors. I'm an executor. I don't come up with great ideas, but I can execute great ideas. And sometimes you have to step back and really understand what are my strengths and what specific things can I add to the team and how does that add value to the team. So that's what I've learned from my experience.
Great.
Okay, so I'll talk about a project I had. So in class, we learned about something called packet tracer. And so the teacher goes over like a lesson, and then he'll say, okay, now I've gone over it, now make your own packet tracer, make your own whatever we're gonna make. And so I've learned that some people pay attention, and some people don't. So like, I think it really prepared me for like work in terms of like internship to always pay attention, like make sure you know who's gonna be able to complete something on a given timeline, make sure you know who's dependable, make sure you give somebody a task that's not too hard for them. And then, because sometimes you give somebody a task and it'll be like super extraordinary and you're like, well, it's not that much to me, but it's different for them. So being able to gauge other people's strengths, like you said, is very important. And I've learned that, like, I try to be a leader a lot, but sometimes you gotta let other people give the ideas because, you know, it's more of a collaborative and more of a teamwork when you do it like that. And just going through NAF and the class, you really learn that everybody can bring a different idea to the table. And like, that's opened me up to saying, okay, let me just sit back, let me let them talk it out for the first 10 minutes, then give my input or something like that. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
I think my answer kind of sums up everybody else's in that I really learned a lot about myself, kind of looking into myself. And I realized that as a leader, I need other people to be on the team to do things that I have weaknesses at. So for instance, I run a middle school camp for girls, right? And I am an ideas person, right? I can come up with a grand idea, but I am not an execution person. I can execute, but I don't do it great. And so the first day of our rally camp in June, we didn't have snacks. And I was like, that's why someone else should have done that. It shouldn't have been me. They're like, we're hungry. And I'm like, I should have delegated that. But I got you tomorrow. I had $100 worth of snacks from Walmart. But in any case, but so it really just taught me the value of teamwork and that as a leader, you really need a supportive team to help where you will have those pitfalls. To build you up. And so that was one of the main things that I learned.
Great. Well, Kalia, I know you're thinking a lot about this question of what makes for an effective mentor or teacher. I'd love to hear from each of you as you think back to the teachers that you've had through the NAF program or the workplace mentors. What makes someone effective in that role? What should people know who are thinking about how best to support students? So maybe we'll start with you and work this way.
Okay, cool. Well, with the mentorship, I think sometimes it's twofold. And I've had the unique experience to have people who were actually older than me tell me that I've mentored them. This just happened last night. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And so I just think just understanding that value that other people can add, no matter their age, race, makeup, you can learn from anyone. But I think what makes a great mentor is leading by example. So I always pull, this wasn't unfortunately from my NAF experience, but I tell the story all the time how my mentor in college, my computer science mentor, played varsity basketball for NC State. And she was in computer science, and her GPA was way better than mine. And so I said, well, if Brittany can go on TV and play basketball and have a great GPA, then I can get my act together and get my GPA up as well. And so it wasn't something that she was drilling into me. It was just her leading by example that made me say, okay, I have her help, I have her support. And here she is leading by example and doing all the things that she needs to do to graduate. And so I need to do the same. And so I think mentorship can go both ways. And, to be supportive of your mentee, to try to lead by example and not always try to force things down their throats is super, super key.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about how you're doing that at the Intech camp. Tell us about the camp and how you're putting those principles into practice.
Sure. So, So Intech, it was started 4 years ago by me. I just really was passionate about getting more girls in the technology field because I've had a great experience. It's given me a lot of opportunities, hence this one here. And so, I had the opportunity to work full-time at Apple's headquarters out in Cali. And so I remember having a manager say to me, well, I was doing user experience work, right? So I was doing tech, and I had a manager say, well, it seems like you should be doing inclusion and diversity work because you have this camp. And I looked at him and I said, well, let me help you understand that when I go speak to students and when they come to our camp and they see me and my friends leading by example in tech, that gives me the fuel to come back to work to actually do this work. And so it's a cycle, right? And so it's like, all right, I'm helping them get excited about technology, and then that excites me to go back to work to then, do my job. And so with Intech, we bring middle school girls in, teach them how to code, but also introduce them to as many women as possible that are in tech so that they'll already know, like I did when I got to NC State, I can do this. Through my NAF experience, I had women in my academy who looked like me the entire time. And so I never knew that there was a lack of women in the technology field. I didn't know that until I got to college. And I was like, oh, but it was too late, right? Because I'm already hooked. It was too late. And I was like, I'm doing this. This is happening. And so that's basically, through Intech, the same spirit and courage and attitude that I want to give our scholars. And so it's just been amazing to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Jose?
Okay, so being a full-time student all my life, I have the pleasure of knowing a bunch of different types of teachers. I've known the teachers that'll say, okay, everybody's gonna do this and this is how it's gonna go. I know the teachers that give certain groups different tasks, and I would say the most important thing for a teacher or mentor of a big group would be understanding that not everybody works the same. And if a teacher can effectively reach out and teach multiple different types of learning styles within the same class, I think that's best because you see nowadays a lot of students, you got the students that need to see it on the board, you have the students that need to do it for themselves, then you got the students that need to hear you say it over and over. And it's if a teacher can get all three, which I know is hard, my dad's a teacher, I know it's super hard. If you can get all three, then I think that'll make the perfect teacher. And I would say just different ways of different teaching styles, like always switching it up, not keeping it the same, because like students, we get tired of the same thing thrown at us like every day. And so I would say being able to switch it up, but also still, not switching up the curriculum, but just switching up the way that you're teaching it. So being able to mold it and being able to manipulate it so that everybody has like a fair share at learning,
Great.
Specifically for me, my greatest mentors have been people that invested in me as a human, invested in me as a person, not just invested in me as an accountant or as a person that works in finance. EQ is becoming much more important in the workplace, and if I just have IQ, then I'm not successful. And so I need both. I need both in my life to best mentor me, and I think that's really important for people to understand.
Great. Excellent.
First, I'd like to give a shout out to Miss Webster and Miss Cutler. They're both my NAF teachers, and they can't be here today, but they've played a big role in my involvement in NAF and shaping who I am, especially because they've pushed me to work my hardest out of my comfort zone and beyond what I think is easy. As a high school student, I'm lazy, I'm busy, I'm tired. I want to get good grades, but I'm going to do the least amount possible to get a good grade.
Perfectly said. It was.
But my teachers, they can see right through that, and they always push me to go beyond what is just easy for me and to work harder to reach that highest level possible.
Great. Great. I want to ask two more questions and then get to audience questions. I want to talk about civic engagement. I taught high school social studies. I worry a lot that we are not doing enough as a country to prepare young people for the responsibilities of citizenship, not just voting, but trying to make our society better. Certainly your experience over the last year has been a profound one in Parkland. Maybe we'll start with you, but I'd love to hear how do you see the role of young people in terms of civic engagement, and how have NAF experiences helped you think about your role as citizens?
I think that it's very important for students to really know what's going on in the country, to have their voice, because a lot of times students, they're looked down upon by adults and they feel like they don't have a voice or they don't really have a say what's going on in anything, especially not the government or the country. And a lot of times they're not properly educated or they don't even care if they have that right to vote. They feel like their voice or their vote won't be heard even if they do go out and vote, so they decide not to. But I think what my school has proven is that students really do have a voice, because when we join together, and we can do that with so many ways, as the school or online through social media, it's such a great tactic to get so many people together and really make our voice heard and make a big change. And I think that's really important because it's our future. What people do now or what people do in a month will affect our careers, will affect our college careers, will affect things that could happen in 20 years, 30 years, so on and so forth. And that it affects us the most. So we should make sure that we have an equal say.
Thanks. And I think you know this, Christina, but every person in this room, I am certain, is deeply inspired by you and your classmates at Parkland, and we are moved by what you've been through and inspired by how you have responded to it.
So my civic engagement would be giving back. And that was very important at my NAF Academy. And we can inspire students to have an idea about giving back by giving them a seat at the table. It feels good when we all have a seat at the table. So once we lend that responsibility to students, they'll be more apt to join in civic conversation and civic duties. And that was shown prevalently in my high school. More specifically, we went to a local elementary school that was low income, and we taught them about checkbooks. We taught about them about managing money, and this was a weekly thing. And so this wasn't just you go do it and then that was it. You did it every week and you committed to that. And so specifically, I felt like I had a seat at the table. So that made me more engaged. That made me more enthusiastic about doing civic work.
Great, thanks.
Well, I'll say in my classroom, it's a certain type of environment where you can like practice civic engagement in your own classroom. So for instance, in my class, I would sometimes get the topic quicker or understand what I need to do like a little bit quicker than others. And then I would say in the beginning of the year, I would just be like, let me finish my work first, you know, as long as I'm done everything, if I can finish this, and then maybe if I'm like feeling good, I'll help other students, you know. And then it got to the point where I was stumped on something and another student did the same thing to me. It was basically like, well, I need to finish mine too, so you go over to the side and you try to figure it out, and then I'll help you if I can. So then that's when I realized, I was like, wow, you know, how much farther as a class would we get if we just helped each other out, you know? And I really started doing that. And it's really funny. You get to know your classmates better, and that goes for the real world. You get to know people better. You get to see different people's experience, have more empathy for people. And like, it just really helped me. So that's a perfect way that I've seen it in just my own class. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
One thing that I've learned through my work with InTech is that students, the younger they are very engaged already. So our first summer camp, that is, was held in 2016, and it was just after the Pulse nightclub shootings. And so what our scholars do in the summer, they actually come and build websites about social issues, right? And so the first day of camp, that's what they do. They figure out what issue they want to tackle. And we had a group of students that wanted to tackle LGBT issues because they were like, you know, they weren't comfortable with what happened down in Orlando, and so they built an entire website about the issues and the awareness and why it's important. And that's been the common theme since then. Our students continuously are informing us as camp counselors and staff about what's going on in the communities and things of that sort. They're talking about unemployment rates, they're talking about abuse, they're talking about bullying, and these are middle school girls, some of them like 6th and 7th grade, and this is what they're already thinking about. And so I'm grateful that we're able to give them the technological tools to be able to say, okay, I can be interested in this cool technology, you know, things of that sort, and not only do like gaming and things of that sort, but like use this as a tool to actually advance humanity potentially. And so, you know, just kind of meeting that intersection. I think a lot of times with technology and engineering, we can get kind of lost in the innovation, and the human part actually gets lost and the civic part gets lost. And so it's just given the power, and that stemmed from my experience in my NAF Academy. I graduated high school in 2008. It was the height of you know, President Obama's election, and I was excited about that, and I wanted my peers to be able to vote. And so I said, all right, let's do a voters registration drive. And the first day when we kicked it off, we actually used the computers from the IT Academy to actually try to register people to vote. And so that was kind of like the start of it for me. So it was a voting situation then and not necessarily social issues, but that just kind of grew from my time at my NAF Academy as a senior.
Great. Thanks. We're running short on time, so I'll try and blend my last question with one of the audience questions around how your views about society have changed as a result of your NAF experiences, your internship experiences, and in particular, I'd be interested in, given how much division we see on a daily basis, particularly around issues of race or gender or LGBTQ status or how we are treating as a country immigrants, I'd be curious to hear how you think about our diversity in our society and diversity in the workplace and how we can best navigate that and some of the learning that you've taken from your NAF experiences.
I think that in everything we do, diversity is important. No matter what, we need to make sure that everyone really has a say. Whatever race, gender, beliefs they follow, because they bring different points of views to the table. They can attract different people to that cause, and they can also bring new ideas that you may not have thought of. So I think that with NAF, it's really helpful because, as I said earlier, I got to meet and work with new people that I would never have worked with before. Yet we still managed to create something amazing, even better than what potentially I could have made without them. So I really think it's important to have these different points of views, and I think that NAF really helps bridge that gap and push you beyond what you may think of as your comfort zone to work with these new people and these new points of views that you may have not have seen before.
Great, thanks.
So yeah, how my views have changed. I think we all surround ourselves with people that are like us. One thing that NAF did is definitely help me understand that I can branch out to different people. And so that was most important for me. But diversity in the workplace, where less than 2% of CPAs are African American, is very important to me. And I've thought about often, how do we change that? How do we fix that? And so I've taken a step back and understand that we just need to have the conversation. The conversation needs to be had. People are not having the conversations. They're just throwing out the term and saying, diversity, 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 and that's all. But we really need to have legitimate conversations with everyone in the workplace, no matter whether you're white, black, gay, straight, whatever it is. And so that's what I've learned. Let's have the conversation. It's time.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
So just being in NAF, just being in the class, like itself brings a lot of togetherness because we all wanted this specific class. We all signed up for this class. We all have sort of the same idea on that. And I feel like if you get like one common idea that everybody wants, like I would say everybody in here like would like be like, I want free Wi-Fi or something, you know? Like that's something that I think we can all agree on. But once you have that one common ground, you can pretty much branch out from that. And like NAF has shown me, got a lot of different backgrounds of people. I got people in my class that said they didn't want to be in the program at first. They were put in it because they just had to go to the school or something. And different people, you know, different backgrounds. And, you know, it's different. Like the point of views are so special because it teaches you that, like she said, everybody's viewpoint is important. And you can never like cancel somebody else's out. So I think NAF has done a pretty good job on that. And
great.
Well, I know especially in our school, we have like a big thing on girls who code. So I've seen that in the past 2 years, and that's like, wow, that just happened like that. So, yeah.
Excellent.
I gave this question some thought this morning, and I'm even trying to figure out how I want to answer it now. I think more responsibility needs to be on the companies where we're sending students, more pushback on the retention. I think a lot of conversation has been around the recruitment, like we don't have enough, where can we go, where's the talent pool, and things of that sort. But again, I worked in Silicon Valley for a couple years, and I felt all of those pressures and biases and all of that, right? And it can play on your psyche a little bit. But I think there isn't enough conversation from the top down about retention and what that really means. And while I was at Apple, I mean, I had the ear of some of the powers that be, and I'm like, all right, this is great that, I don't know if you all are familiar with the National Center for Women in Information Technology, but I'm involved with them as well. And so a lot of the senior leaders at Apple went there, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Well, like, what is being done to trickle this information down from the senior leadership down to mid-level managers? Because that's where I was, right? That's, I don't interface with senior leaders all the time. However, I didn't feel like, and this is not just at Apple, I get this, I have this conversation with my peers, right? That their managers just may not understand. And it's like, what can happen? What conversations can happen that can kind of trigger something within the managers and across their teams to make employees feel more included and retain them. Like, I know a lot of people who have left Silicon Valley that may be from the South like I was, and they just didn't feel welcome there, right? And so I just think that the conversation needs to be more twofold, not just recruitment, but also retention, because we get students out there and then what, right? Like I said, I had the confidence when I left my NAF Academy that I could do anything. And so, and that got broken down just a little bit, not too much, humble myself, it's all good. But I think NAF does that. Like, you all give us the confidence to say that you can face anything, and here are the tools to do that. But sometimes we may hit a wall, and it's just like, okay, well, what can employers do to kind of help with that from a retention aspect? So,
Thank you. It's a powerful message for the employers in the room, right? To think about not just recruitment, but retention and the climate that's created in the workplace, but also a powerful message for us educators in the room as partners with employers to push employers on this issue. One of the audience members asked about the experience of non-NAF students, and it's a little bit builds on what you said, Ose. What would you say if you were talking to a peer who didn't go through NAF, and they said, what is this NAF thing anyway, and why do I really need it? What would you tell them makes the NAF experience so powerful, so important, and so different from what their experience of high school may be? And anyone can start.
So yeah, I would tell them it's an immediate network of people that are directly investing in you. You don't always immediately have a network. You have to build a network, right? You have to build your rapport. You have to connect with people. You have to network. But the minute you join NAF, you have an immediate network.
Excellent. Good.
I think NAF really helps you with professionalism because you learn a lot of important things in high school, math, science, English, but in a lot of careers you go into, you won't use these things every day. But I think the things that we learned in NAF are truly important things that you will apply every single day. A lot of people, when they're applying to colleges or applying to jobs, they don't know how to format a resume or how to complete a job interview or even how to dress professionally. And I really think that I've learned a lot of these things through NAF that will really put me ahead of the others who really haven't learned these things.
Great.
I would say NAF is a very good group of people that really want to see you succeed, and like genuinely. So as soon as I came in NAF, Mr. Home, Ms. Hazlett, Mr. Leslie, like you get that feeling of like family sort of, and you're in a specific group. So they're literally focusing all their energy on helping your group succeed, and that's why I think it's so much more successful than other programs, because NAF, you have the teachers, like, they're not over here trying to do every single thing. They're not focusing on every single career path, but they're focusing on one. So if you know what you want to do, and even if you don't want to do it, you're going to be prepared for that career. So that's what I think NAF pretty much does best. Like, it's really good that they do it.
Excellent.
Oh, okay.
No?
I mean, I can add.
Yeah, please.
Because like I said, when I first went to my high school, the only NAF Academy was the IT Academy. And so when I realized like what made our academy set apart was NAF, I think it's the classes that you take, right? And so they really do prepare you for that next step if you decide to stay on that career path. So, I was able to program when I got to NC State. Not a lot of students come in with that experience and ability. And so I think, if I had to talk to a student to get them to choose a NAF track over just a traditional path, that would be my selling point, is that you're getting classes that you're going to see later. And you could potentially use this skill, now, like in web development, for instance. You can make websites for people now and make money for that. You don't have to wait to go to college. So,
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, got 1,000 people plus in this room who are doing great work and want to get better, want to make their NAF programs better for students, want to help more students succeed, want to reach the student who isn't quite connected yet, isn't quite clear on their path. What can you tell them? What do they need to know? What's the insight from your experience? Something that you felt was missing, something you wish there was more of, something that you see for some of your peers that they need to be successful?
I think this is not something that was necessarily missing, but it's something that I have experienced throughout my NAF experience, and that I think some people may not experience as much as me, is that connection between the NAF student and the NAF teacher or advisor. I'm really lucky to have a good connection with both of my NAF teachers, and there's that level of respect where we're seen as equals and not a teacher or as a student, but more of like friends or someone I can go to if I have a question or I need help, or if I just need them for something. And I really think that has helped me gain more from NAF and them learn more about me and know how to teach me and my other peers better.
Great. Thank you.
So I reflect back on my NAF experience in high school, and again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I was all about the Finance Academy. Those were the friends that I hung out with in school, and those were the friends that I hung out with outside of school, besides recruitment period. And so I think something that maybe we need to do is kind of bridge that gap between people that aren't in NAF and people that are, because you can get so close to these people because they're amazing, because they're your friends, because they care about you, because your teachers care about you. But it's not this circle. We want everyone to be a part, right? And so it's really just getting out there and making students understand that this is more than just the group in the classroom that you sit in.
Excellent.
I would say probably one of the top 3 most important things is just make sure you have a teacher that's passionate about what they're teaching. I think students will vibe more to that teacher. The teacher will come off as like wanting to teach more and being more open, because like the students, at least in my experience, if you know a teacher is like really passionate and is willing to stay after or willing to like really focus with you, then you'll get a better like learning experience.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I would add that having as many examples of working professionals come speak to your students as possible is a super major key. I remember my AP computer science teacher showing us this video about computer science careers, and my best friend, Kumar, who was also in my academy, I remember like our conversation afterwards was like, man, like I didn't know I could do X, Y, and Z with this, with a computer science degree. And we chose that path. We both were successful or whatever, or are successful. However, it wasn't until our senior year when we were able to see what we could do through technology. And so, like within tech, I put as many of my friends as possible, from different disciplines, whether they're in academia or in like true tech careers, just so they can see people and get ideas on things that they can do. Like my friend, she has a degree in film, but she's a front-end developer. She actually just got a job at Apple at their headquarters, and so I'm like super excited to see her growth, right? So she was able to go from film to programming, and so it's just kind of like, you don't have to choose one thing all the time, or you can change that, and just having those examples in front of your students, I think that would be helpful.
Great. Sadly, we are out of time, but I want to thank you all for showing us all what NAF makes possible for students, for inspiring us with your passion and vision for yourselves, and most importantly, your passion and vision for giving back and giving back to the community and to other young people so they can have the kinds of opportunities that you have. We knew this was going to be inspiring. This was incredibly inspiring. Please all join me in thanking this